They dropped him off on some boat over there, because that's where they got dropped off first.
Ooh, I can't wait till you talk to who we got on the show tonight. Because, depending on where you came from and when you came here or whatnot, one group feels you may not be owed reparations as you know it because of slavery in this country. We're about to be joined by members of a new movement referred to as ADOS, simply the African American descendants of slavery. It's pushing the black agenda forward to Congress and the White House to recoup what many blacks lost due to years of oppression, including slavery. They're also going to tell us which blacks should actually get it. And you all ain't eligible according to them.
Child, please.
Y'all ain't all eligible. So don't think just because you got some melanin in your skin, you about to get some green. It ain't happening. But before we do so, you know what we need to do. Connect with us by tweeting at Fox Soul TV. You can call us at 866-FOX-SOUL. That's 866-369-7685 because we are live and we want to hear from you. But first, we got a poll question before we get started. Should African Americans, as I mentioned, African Americans, you black, should you receive reparations? Go to foxsoul.tv/vote and let us know. You guys ready to make this happen? Yeah. This should be a really interesting conversation. Please welcome Friday Jones, Angela Nirvana, and Chad Brown to the show. My girl Friday.
Hey,
Okay, all right. Represent. Show the t-shirt. There you go. Coming in here like Superman.
I gotta make one quick correction.
Go ahead.
Yes.
It's American descendants of slavery. American first. We're American first.
Okay, all right. Let's keep it American then. All right, because we've been talking about reparations since the end of slavery, pretty much. 40 acres and a mule. Everybody's been trying to get us reparations. I mean, they got all these different people in Congress. I know Charles Blow has spoken before Congress trying to get us reparations. How's your group any different?
Well, first of all, back to what Chad was saying, the distinction, American descendants of slavery. The reason why we need that distinction is because when you say African American, you can be from any part of the world. You can be from Africa and be in America. You can be born by way of African parents in America and be coined as African American.
Right.
You can come from the Caribbean and now you're Caribbean American. So we need that distinction of American descendants of slavery to embrace being from this country because we have a justice claim. That is reparations. When we say American descendants of slavery, that means you were brought here and your ancestors were enslaved here. They were the shoes. They were the machines. And all of the wealth that you see in this country is a byproduct of our ancestors' enslavements. So we need that distinction because, as you mentioned prior, not everybody is entitled to the reparations in this country. Sure, the Caribbean
have CARICOM. They have CARICOM.
Okay.
The Africans can take up their issues with their colonizers. But we don't have any issues with our immigrant brothers and sisters. But I can tell you this, it's masking our failure in this country.
Okay.
Because the government expects for us to eat slavery. We're supposed to eat the slavery in this country. And I want to also make this distinction, that reparations is not just for slavery, but it's for accrued, ongoing, systemic racism, oppression and disadvantage
we understand
in the country our ancestors built with their lives. So I need that distinction because folks always want to say slavery was a bazillion years ago. No, it wasn't.
It's still going on pretty much.
It's still going on through private prison industrial complex.
We're still being oppressed, Angela.
We're still being oppressed.
So, but slavery started brought here 400 years ago because the year returned. Ghana went to Ghana last year. And so are you saying that if you were brought here, your ancestors, you can prove that your ancestors were brought here to this particular country, not dropped off in Jamaica, not dropped off in the Caribbean.
That's right.
I'm just letting you know because I want to make sure. And they, after slavery ended, you have to make a distinction that they stayed in this country and the lineage goes back to that?
The lineage.
Okay.
Like I was saying, it's not that Jamaicans and Caribbean people aren't owed reparations. We're all for them getting their reparations. But let me ask you this. am I able to leave this country and go to the Caribbean and collect whatever repair they get through CARICOM?
Okay.
And I've heard it put well in an analogy. If a Coke truck hits you and a Pepsi truck hits me, Coke owes you, Pepsi owes me.
Okay.
I cannot go and then say, Coke, you owe me for hitting Mike,
right?
Right. So we have a specific claim in America against the U.S. government for 2 centuries plus of slavery, plus an additional century, 150 years of Jim Crow, convict leasing, black codes, redlining, gentrification, drug war, lynching. The list goes on and on.
There's like $5 to $10 trillion that I heard that this country generated.
Okay.
Generated.
Okay.
Due to the oppression and the atrocities of slavery, white wealth. That maybe we're owed as far as reparations concerned. You're telling Donnie.
Yeah.
Basically.
Well, but here's the thing. But Donnie, Jamaica, and I actually like what Jamaica has done. I'm not sure about all of the countries in CARICOM, but what Jamaica has said, and I think it's an important question. Jamaica has said if your family had left, they left, you know, the island of Jamaica, the country of Jamaica, your reparations will follow you. Jamaica has made that distinction in terms of how they intend to pay out. And so I think that your money is still going to come to you by way of your father, by way of Jamaica, because they've already made that statement. America, you know, America hasn't made a statement. We're trying to make the statement.
But we're all black people who have been in this country and still been oppressed, even if they did not come over here before slavery ended or whatnot, have still suffered the atrocities, like you mentioned, Jim Crow, gone through it. So you're trying to tell me, like Donnie, if my family came from Africa in the 1900s, and they still suffered some of the same racism, some of the same prejudices, still building this country and dealing with all the issues and being left behind because of the color of their skin, that they're not owed any of that money.
Well, let me help you with the statistic, okay, to let you know that black immigrants actually are faring better in this country than we are as descendants of American slavery.
How is that?
Out of 107 trillion household dollars, white people share $100 trillion.
90%.
90% of blacks share $700 billion. 10% of blacks share $2.3 trillion. So what I'm trying to say is, of the 36 million black people in this country, 90% of us descend from American slavery. 10% of us are other. So if you're talking 90% of us sharing 700 billion, 10% are sharing 2.3 trillion, then who is owed the reparations? The immigrants that come here, that generally descend from money. Some of them descend from slave traders in Africa. Who is owed that money? And I'm saying that if they descend from slave traders, why should they get a check? They come over here with money.
Right.
You can't get into this country if you're black without money.
Right.
And so you come over here and you kind of double dip. We don't know if you descend from slave traders. But you're over here and you're identifying, not from the Caribbean, I'm dealing with Africa.
Okay.
We don't know if you descend from slave traders, but now you're able to come over here. You have a certain wealth position if you're in this country. Oftentimes, if you're in the Hollywood industry.
You did not say Hollywood.
That's kind of a natural.
Some people refer to it as Hollywood.
You know, they're actually hiring a lot of British trained actors.
Yes.
Things that we, as the 90% that share the 700 billion, can never afford to do. So what I'm saying is, they come from a wealth position from overseas, and then they come and they check the box off as African American to get entitlements.
They get entitlements
that were due us.
I get it.
I think we also have to make.
It's also a timing issue.
A timing issue, a distinction about immigration and when the majority of black immigration occurred. prior to 1965 Immigration and Naturalization Act, the amount of black immigrants in America was to the right of the decimal point.
Right.
So we were very much a monolith. You said Negro, there was no question of who you were talking about in this country. So what we see now are a lot of black immigrants that are first, second generation. And I know my sisters here, their folks go back into the 17th century just like my folks. You know, I'm a Mississippi boy. That's where I come from. So, you know, my grandmother tells me stories about being the daughter of sharecroppers. She lived through Jim Crow. So that's a unique sort of situation and a lived and shared experience that black immigrants don't necessarily share.
I totally agree with everything you guys are saying right now. But, you know, Donnie, I'm pretty sure you're shaking your head.
Donnie's feeling still hurt.
I want Donnie to jump in.
I'm not hurt. I'm just like, we all got on that boat and they came and kidnapped us and we all deserve some change. And I don't care if you come from Africa, I don't care if you come from Jamaica, if you got dropped off there first, we deserve the money first because our people, then we came up over here. You know what I'm saying?
That's the operative word. You came here. We were brought to these shores to work under the heinous free chattel slave labor in this country. The most heinous in the world is what our people endured. And when I see the police murdering us with impunity, I really don't see a lot of immigrants, not that I want to see that, but what I'm trying to share here is that these are poor black people that descend from slavery in this country that you see being annihilated, that you see being miseducated, that you see being pushed out of their communities, that you see. Let me give you a stack here.
Hold on, Angie, because you know I got to stop you. I got to push back a little bit because please do.
But my mama came from Texas, so we really deserve some money. So just
then you get a check. She sounds like an American descendant of slavery.
Right, she is.
Right.
Then you get a check.
Exactly. How do you determine? Because you got to do the 23andMe. How do you prove?
No, let me jump in here. My family, I come from the United Martin family. That is the United Martin family is one of the largest black families in America who can actually, there's a bill of sale. We have a significant amount of history on Tracy, which is my great-great-great-grandmother 7 generations back, who came, her bill of sale says she came from the Congo. She was purchased by a white woman in Charleston, South Carolina, and she wound up in Jenkinsville and was purchased by the Martin family 2 more times, and bam, with a bunch of mulattoes, we those people, okay? The Martins were Irish people. They came here in like the 1720s. They immigrated to the United States. Within 2 generations, they were slave-owning farmers. And so for me, that's one leg of my family. But me personally, I'm also indigenous. Shinnecock Nation over in the most, where all the people want to go, the wealthy people in New York, Long Island want to go to the Hamptons. That's where the Shinnecock Nation is.
Right.
I also have Caribbean heritage. I have a great-grandfather who married the Shinnecock woman who sugar plantation slavery in Barbados. The Fenties. Hey, Rihanna. So the Fenty family from Barbados. So I feel like in terms of who I am as a person, I'm very ingrained in the totality of the United States of America's history, in terms of the white Irish, in terms of the African slave, in terms of the indigenous population, in terms of 1912 coming over from Barbados. Okay. That's when my great-grandfather came. But
hold on, Fred, I want to say this. I want to end this. If we all have a white man's last name, we all should get money. Okay?
Just quickly.
we all have white man's last name. What's your last name?
Jones.
That's a white man's last name.
Well, he has a point.
Okay.
But even greater than that, this country and the government knows clearly who descends from slavery in this country.
Okay.
Let me help you.
Go ahead.
Because we were insured. Our ancestors were insured, and you're right. To your point, we carry our master's last name.
Right. Okay. So
when they act oblivious, don't believe the hype.
Okay, but are they going to tell us? And how do we prove that we have that lineage?
ADOS Los Angeles.
We've set forth criteria that's based in the research and work of Dr. William Darity, Duke professor, renowned economist, and the leading authority on reparations. He sets forth 3 criteria. Number one, that you can trace at least one ancestor back to American chattel slavery.
Okay. Okay.
Number two, that at least 10 years prior to the onset of any reparations program, you have identified as Black, African American, or Negro. And then if for cases of mixed race, that you're able to show a grandparent that meets both of those criteria. So we have the criteria already. There is no purity test. There is no genetic test or anything of that nature. It really is identifying, and back to what Angela was saying, America kept immaculate records of their slaves.
Where do we find these records?
And so
Help us out. Help us find these records.
Currency of this country.
Okay.
Yeah, ADOS Los Angeles, for the ending of the year, we really wanted to end the year, based and steeped in our lineage. And so the Church of Latter-day Saints, right over here in West LA on Wilshire Boulevard, a beautiful facility. They have a library. They have librarians that are trained genealogists. We had someone go with us. They traced their history back to the UK to the 1400s.
Wow.
From one trip. That was our first trip. And we're going to continue to do more because we want people to take the time. We had a meeting with Karen Bass. And I, just like I shared my family history here today, I shared the history with her, and she was a little bit in awe.
Tell the people who Karen Bass is.
Karen Bass is the chairwoman of the Black Caucus, the Congressional Black Caucus. Right. She is also my, she's my congresswoman also here in Los Angeles. But she had challenges with her family's history. But I would challenge any African American, whether you came by way of Jamaica, whether you are steeped in ADOS or not, to actually go through those records, because the records are so extensive. I mean, slave rolls. They have indigenous rolls. Right. You can do a deeper dive than you may have thought. I was very fortunate. On my mom's side, my great-grandmother died in 2012. She was 107 years old. Most people don't have the ability to even have that conversation with a grandparent, let alone a great-grandparent. Right. But that Church of Latter-day Saints, I don't know why they started collecting this information, but they did a fantastic job. And we have to use those resources. They're not just in Los Angeles. You can go to their website. You can figure out the city closest to you and start doing the work. And if you actually hit a stopping point, on my mom's side, the family's from North Carolina, father's side, South Carolina, then you might have to go to the local church. You might have to go to Mary's Chapel down there in Skyland Neck, North Carolina.
Like you said, there are records for everybody out there. You can find out where your history and how your lineage came about and how you got to this country and when you were brought here to this country. I understand that. And luckily for me, my mom has done the same thing. So I know I'm eligible to get something. You know what I'm saying? I know. Don't let the light skin fool you. I get a check. You get a check. You get a check.
But not to minimize it just to a check.
Right. It's not to thank you, Chad.
Reparations is a multi-generational, comprehensive, large government program of set-asides, of allocations of benefits and direct cash payments that go to the American descendants of slavery.
So if you're just if you got a cousin back in the day, not even your grandmama or something like that, but somebody that's in your family that was a slave, you're saying they're eligible. So once again, going back to how his family was dropped off, your dad's family, right? Right. All right. When they came here from Africa on those slave ships, they were dropped off in the Caribbean, right?
Yes.
Say Donnie may have been 16 years old, dropped off in the Caribbean. His family, his mom and his dad, may have been brought over here, right? And separated. So how could he still trace it? Would he be eligible that way if he spent his life over in the Caribbean, right? Raised his family in the Caribbean and then came to the United States after slavery. Would he be eligible even though his family really was part of slavery over here in the United States?
Well, the thing is that I don't know.
You understand where I'm coming from?
I don't know how it would have worked that way when slavery had ended, when immigration started in this country after 1955.
No, what I'm saying, okay, so 400 years ago, when the boats came and they dropped some of the slaves.
Even 1619, that very first ship, I mean, I think only 2 Africans actually were enslaved here in the U.S., and then the ship went on to the Caribbean. That's the true history of that ship. And I understand what you're saying, but at this point, we have countries that have to form responsibility.
But we're trying to figure out the lineage part of
the
things.
lineage
like this,
part
like,
is where was the work done? Where was the work
but his
done?
his
Where was
family,
the
his
ancestry
family,
done?
if he was, even if his family was, he was dropped off in the Caribbean first. His family.
Okay, Donnie's already getting 2 checks. Jamaica's
We're trying to figure out who's up because it's
And
so
Texas is
complicated.
giving
It's
him
not
one.
that complicated when you think about it. He's already said that his mother is Texan. She must.
He might want to get 2 checks.
Well, he will. On his father's side, he will be eligible per what Friday just shared.
Okay.
Jamaica's going to have that money travel. That's something we're intending to.
Okay. And you're working on that cause as well.
Lineage. Well, it's
We're supportive of that cause.
We're
Okay.
supportive of that. Yes, it's about lineage. So if you're over in another country, if your lineage and you descend, if you're an American descendant of slavery, you should still be entitled to your reparations wherever you are in the world.
And just like I have no Jamaican ancestry in my lineage, I wouldn't go to the Caribbean and say I should be included in that justice claim.
You're right.
Absolutely.
We have a phone call. Jamie's on the line. Hey, Jamie.
Hi, you guys.
Hi, Jamie.
I would like to just say I appreciate all the work that's been done by ADOS, especially Miss Angela Nirvana. What I want to ask or pose is this. I think that basing reparations only on lineage is a little bit off because there's also a consideration of suffrage. So, for example, white people, when they look at black people in America, they don't know your origin. They treat you based on the fact that you're black, and I'm talking about historically, because that's why you have an Amadou Diallo. He was killed because he looked like a black man, not because he was African. You know, Abner Louima was sodomized as a black Haitian, but that's the practice of America, right? So I'm using those as examples of people who may have been in this country for hundreds of years, i.e., let's go back, not hundreds, but Marcus Garvey, right? So to suggest that a Marcus Garvey, who did the work and suffered in America, should have no part in reparations, I think is not rational. I think that it has, the lineage has a starting point, but it doesn't include everything because suffrage should be taken into account. So I just want to pose that to the
great point.
to you guys and see what you
So,
great point. Address that, Chad.
couple of points. Number one, ADOS, we are not defining ourselves through a lens of white supremacy. And so just because white supremacy sees flat blackness, we are not ascribed to that, right? We're not defining ourselves how they define us. We're defining ourselves through that lens of lineage that was created out of that institution of child slavery. And I might add that the rest of the world defines themselves through lineage. So, Donnie, your Jamaican people, when they come here, they don't abdicate their Jamaicanness. They call themselves Jamaican Americans. Or if you come from anywhere in the Caribbean, if you come from Haiti, you're a Haitian American. Africa, you identify as a Ghanaian American. So we have to stop castigating Black Americans for saying what the rest of the world is saying, is that we want to identify ourselves through our unique lineage and through our shared experience.
Okay, so, and I agree with you, because, well, here's the thing. I understand, because if you're a descendant of slaves and they built this country over here, all right, the 40 acres and a mule that they said was set aside.
15, yeah.
That should go to the people who were slaves here. I understand that, so I'm with you on that. What I don't agree with is, when I was doing my research, is you're saying that even immigrants who come over here after slavery should not be entitled to programs like affirmative action and things like that. Now, that's what I read. Now, I could be wrong, okay, so clarify that.
So I think, unfortunately for black folks in particular, or ADOS in particular, affirmative action really had a 10-year life. When you consider all of the things that were done, the only sort of things that were done by the United States government as a plus for us, we didn't get land grants. We didn't get, you know, FHA financing on farms with the sharecropping. There were significant stacks against us. We got the 13th and 14th Amendment, which still includes slavery through imprisonment. And then we had the Civil Rights Act, and that was about it in terms of this country giving us something to pull ourselves up from. And so I think it's important. I'm a little lost in this second. What was your question?
No, about affirmative action. So do you guys agree do you agree that all black people or people minorities, people that have been discriminated against in this country deserve affirmative action, even if you're not?
Particularly with the Democratic Party, a lot has been attached on civil rights. Civil rights is I as a human being see you as a human being, and there should be civility in how we as human beings treat each other. But affirmative action was a repair. It was actually a form of repair.
I get it.
And then the Bakke case,
I get it.
the Supreme case, Bakke case in California, kicked it out the door. And after that, it's kind of about the same time that the floodgates open on diversifying what immigration looked like in this country. Now, I think there should be affirmative action still for African Americans, descendants of slavery, but there should be diversity action so that the country can sort of just deal with social injustice on its own. To me, those are two distinct things.
Just
let
on
me
affirmative
clarify. Go
action
ahead.
quickly, we also have to recognize that in the current state, the largest beneficiaries from affirmative action are white women.
Right.
So
Right.
you have to ask, that program is fundamentally broken. It was intended for the American descendants of slavery, those builders of the country,
Right.
as you so eloquently said. But now we see that it has been co-opted by a group that did not suffer at all under chattel slavery or Jim Crow or any of the ensuing institutional oppression that occurred.
And
As a matter of fact, we were their property.
Wealth is also held here in households. So when you have white women participating in affirmative action at larger rates than you actually have American descendants of slaves participating in affirmative actions, that's a problem.
So you just want to redefine in the sense.
It should be redefined.
It needs a complete
That's
overhaul. It needs to be specific
Right.
for ADOS.
Go ahead.
Chad, how is that able to happen with the white women? How was that able to happen?
Your guess
Chad?
is as good as mine. I wish I had something to say about
Our
it.
government, have you not seen?
So what politicians are we going to hold responsible for this?
All of them.
All of them.
We're primarying all of them.
So
we've got candidates running on the local, state, and federal level. We're coming. ADOS is here.
Okay.
And we mean to take it over because it's the only way to be repaired. The current CBC, the current Democratic Party is not invested. They've all run away from that microphone when Jamie Fowler went all through this country chasing them around, asking them about reparations. And let me tell you something else while I'm on that point.
Go ahead.
Class-based policies don't fix race.
They never have.
Class-based. So let me share with you about Bernie Sanders, who seems to be everybody's favorite, even ours. Let me help you, because I used to work on his campaign. But he wants to offer class-based policies. He wants to erase student loan debt. Well, did you know that only 16% of ADOS has college degrees? So what about the other 84% of us?
Right.
How do we, this is why reparations is needed. Education, nor job experience, close the egregious racial wealth gap.
That's right.
And it is egregious.
Yes.
And that's why we're calling for reparations. And if these candidates don't get it together, we are on an initiative to show up and vote down. Let me explain.
Wait, what do you mean?
All right. And this is a movement.
Hold on. You ready to vote down, not vote? Is that what you
No.
Simply explain
Let me finish.
Vote down, like explain to me.
Calm down.
Okay.
Let me
Yeah,
explain
because
how
you know
this
who we
works.
got in office right now. I'm just saying.
Let me explain. I understand what you're saying, but white folks put Donald Trump in office. That's not my priority.
That's right.
When we are sick, we have gone from 15% in this state alone,
Down
Los
to
Angeles,
6.
down to 6%,
That's right.
and 80% of us on Skid Row. Let me help you understand. We are on fire.
And we are under
We are,
attack.
no,
That's
not
right.
the movement, but the movement. I'm talking about individually. It's not just the House. We have got to know Spanish when we go out here for these job interviews. Another form of discrimination, because guess what? I don't have the complexion for the protection. You understand?
Right.
I show up, even if I spoke Spanish, I have no social capital at the table.
That's right.
Not an ounce. There's nobody that looks like me that's in a position to hire me.
That's right.
Okay? We've got Hispanics and white folks in a position to tell us no. I went on a 6-figure-a-year job interview, just an example of what I'm talking about. I'm passionate about this because I've lived it. It's a lived experience. And so I went on an interview, and a Hispanic woman invited me to the interview. I was the best, most qualified candidate in there. And she tells me her white superior wanted to continue to look. Why? Because they want to give that to a white person.
That's right.
I've had a colleague had her bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a law degree, earning $200,000 a year with a major insurance company. They replaced her with a white gay male, offered her a 1099 contract. She left and went, about 150 of them were fired. Of that 150, 90% were ADOS, 70% were black women. When they filed a lawsuit for discrimination, which it was clear they were discriminated against, they lost. They didn't have the $350,000 to appeal it to the Supreme Court.
Right.
This is a problem. So why are we saying show up, vote down? Let me explain what that is.
Okay, yeah, explain what it is, real quick.
We want to show up in droves. We want the Obama kind of turnout. Let me explain why.
So explain what vote down means.
Let me explain it.
Okay.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
When you show up, we want you to vote down. That means fill in ADOS. Every place on that ballot where the candidate has not offered up reparations or a black agenda for you. Because we're done being the mules of the Democratic Party.
Right.
And you
60 years and we are in the fight of our lives
right now
to prevent extinction.
In this country that we built.
All right.
Definitely.
And even within the Democratic Party on the local scene, you have Weiner, who's in charge of the California Democratic Party here in the state of California, and he is wanting undocumented immigrants to have the ability to participate at the party level. Now, that is a change, but it's a setup for, you got to think about California. California kisses the border of Mexico. So we have people who are seeking amnesty from South America, Honduras, Chile, all through Mexico, coming up to the border, trying to get in here, seeking amnesty.
Right.
But in Northern California, you have HB1 visa holders who have STEM degrees, and they have all this tech experience where the Democrats and the Republicans are working together to continue those visas. Meanwhile, you got black folks with Harvard degrees in the same industry.
And we just talked about the tech industry.
Cannot get employed.
Only 2% of the ones that work for Uber, only 2% of them work for Uber, blacks identify as black. I get that.
But the sanctuary state here is taking the high and the low end, and they're playing ADOS in the middle.
We understand we have a problem. We got to get to this poll results. Should African Americans receive reparations? And the poll results are in. And do we have the poll results?
80% yes.
80% yes. 80% say yes.
I want to ask you something, Mike, because I feel your pain.
Yes, I feel your passion. I appreciate it.
But I want to ask you.
Pain, it's passion.
It's passion.
You keep on talking about the Democrats, right? Voting whatever you just said. Donald Trump said, so what do we have to lose?
Yes.
If we vote for him.
What do we have to lose? We are on the bottom.
Right.
We are the legs of the table that everyone eats from.
So you're saying we should vote for Donald Trump?
What I'm saying is that the Democrats should offer us reparations and a black agenda in exchange for our votes.
But let's talk about the realities. Let's talk about the realities of black voting patterns in this country for the past 60 years. We vote overwhelmingly Democrat.
Right.
My grandmother used to tell me, just vote for the Democrat. I'm sure a lot of the black people in the audience heard the same thing. So we're speaking to the realities of black voting patterns here when we say vote down ballot if we don't have a Democrat at the top of this ticket that's offering us a black agenda. We are fundamentally shifting this conversation from identity politics to agenda politics. We are an agenda-driven group that's based on data and based on the realities of ADOS life here in America.
Is there a candidate? Is there a candidate that's actually giving you an ear right now? You're listening to
Marianne Williamson.
She was at our conference in October.
They could to silence her. She's, my whole thing was show up during primary and vote for Marianne Williamson to send a message to the Democratic establishment candidate that they're sure to run. They've already chosen Biden. Anyway, my whole thing is show up and vote for her during the primary so that we can send a message to that candidate that's going to run for office for the general. It's reparations leading into the general,
Right.
or don't.
We
We're going to show up and put in ADOS.
we understand the agenda, and we want the agenda. We want reparations. All right. So, if Biden is saying that Biden is on the ticket or Elizabeth Warren is on the ticket, and they're going against Donald Trump.
Biden has already said
well,
it.
let's just say whoever the Democratic nominee is, and they don't have your agenda, right?
Yeah.
And they're going against Trump. You're saying vote down. That's what you're asking your members to do.
We're asking everyone, all ADOS people.
Is that going to make it if Trump gets 4 more years? Is that going to make it better?
The worst president we've seen is black people. Come on now.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, like he says that the economy is up, black unemployment is down, or whatever.
That's not true.
Well, that's what he claims.
Okay, let me explain.
But so is he better than what for everything in this country, not just the reparations?
What I'm trying to say is there's no difference between the devil and Satan.
What'd you say?
We're no longer doing the lesser of two evils. No lesser of two evils.
But you're going to get one of them.
But we are advocating for a black agenda first and foremost.
Right, I understand, and I want that.
So when are we supposed to do that is my question.
Right.
A black agenda.
If every election cycle, the Democrats keep imploring us to put out all of their fires, when do you propose we stand up for ourselves?
We're supposed to. We're always standing up for ourselves. Yes.
The most politically active and loudest movement since the civil rights era. Our Martins, our Malcolms, our Medgar Evers, they were all put 6 feet under. And this country literally just scared us. Let's be honest. Let's have a real conversation.
Come on,
no,
Friday.
you don't want your children going into politics. No, you don't want them being outspoken. Be quiet, get a good job, get your education, and toe the line.
Oh, I am not for anybody keeping their mouths closed.
No. But what I'm saying is that's what we're up against. And the ADOS movement is the first largely political movement that has engaged and captured African Americans across this country.
And the reason for that, yes.
Angela and Friday, the Democrats are users. They've been using us for years, and we ought to stop voting for them. Period.
Are the Republicans better? Are the Republicans better?
Let me help you with that. We don't show up, then they say, see, you get what you get. If we show up in Obama-style numbers and at least vote for our little local initiatives, even if it's a dog catcher, like Yvette just said. Show up and vote for the things that impact you locally, but fill in ADOS for all the candidates from the president down ballot, or skip that line. What that's going to show is that we showed up and you had nothing to offer us. And so you no longer get to use us as the mules. We're done.
We get nothing, they get nothing.
Exactly.
But fundamentally,
we're grooming our own candidates to come up.
We're grooming our candidates
to actually speak to our needs.
We are encouraging black Americans, the electorate, to get politically active.
Yes.
To educate yourself politically, to know your ballot, know what's down ballot, know who has a black agenda, know who supports those things that are important to our communities, right?
Wait. Chad, that's why you're on Fox O. What's your question, beautiful?
My name is Dana. I want to know, where did this movement come from? What is the evolution of this movement? The origin of it?
It started as a hashtag. Yvette Cardinal, my Howard University vice and sister. So Yvette Cardinal, Breaking Brown, YouTube, the new black media. And then we have Antonio Moore. I learned about Antonio Moore from watching, and they just came with the data. They came almost with data and with language that almost enabled me to go out and articulate what it is I meant and what it is that I think about politics and how we as a people need to move based on my lineage, based on stories from my grandmother. I walked, before the Smithsonian was built, the African-American beautiful Smithsonian multi-million-dollar project was built. In Anacostia, Maryland, there was a little tiny African-American museum. I walked up in there with my grandmother and with my Aunt Irene, and they were like, we ready to go. And I said, well, the kids are here. We kind of need to, they were like, we live this. I don't need to read this. I don't need to see these pictures and be reminded of this. I'm ready to go. And when you have that kind of experience and you understand in terms of political costs, the cost you pay with your blackness in this country, to the extent that a Martin Luther King is not supposed to be in the ground. He's supposed to rise to be one of the greatest leaders and have the length of his life granted to him. And we in this country have not been expended that ability to just be. And so this movement is the movement where we say, look, it's now or never. We've been oppressed. And if you have now immigrants, and I challenge immigrants based on my own family's lineage, if you're going to come to this country, you want your American dream, you're going to be status quo, you're willing to be a slave-owning farmer in 2 generations after arriving here so that you can get your American dream, I am not your ally. I am not your friend.
I understand. I love the passion.
And just to reiterate back to the question, ADOS is the brainchild of Yvette Carnell, Breaking Brown on YouTube, and Antonio Moore, Tone Talks on YouTube. And we've been here in this space for about 3 years or so, gaining political education, gaining education about our lineage and where we come from and who we are and why we are a unique and specific group. And so in the past 18 months or so is when the political movement side of ADOS has taken off online, on Twitter, Facebook, all of our social media spaces. So we have started holding, to your point, all politicians accountable across the board.
You have to.
If you are seeking the black vote, you must have a black agenda.
That's right.
We are not taking lift all boats class policies instead of a specific targeted policy that's going to repair and redress our community.
And no one in our black community should just automatically give anybody your vote. Your vote should be earned
Absolutely.
by any candidate.
But unfortunately, we have been giving away our votes.
Yeah, I'm an independent. I'm not a Democrat. Just because my family voted Democrat doesn't mean I'm gonna vote Democrat. You have to earn my vote.
Absolutely.
But I'm educating myself based on what they can do for me and my people.
Correct.
I chose to get this platform right here, my background is sports, because I wanted to uplift my people and give them a platform. Give organizations like ADOS an opportunity to come out here and tell their story and why they are important. You started a couple of years ago, I understand. I also believe there's passion, there's platform, but there's also power in numbers, right? So you have to build. So I got to ask you, first of all, how big is your organization right now? How many people would you say is a part of this movement right now?
So at our conference, the inaugural conference that was hosted at St. Stephen's College, shout out to Dr. Cosby. He was gracious enough to have us at his church. There were 1,500 people there, but there was also news media there that came to record and document. To me, this is history. I need people to understand. This is history in the making.
So you see it growing. That's what I'm saying. You see it consistently growing.
It's important to me. I am Friday Jones on Twitter and social media, but people think that we exist just in social media spaces, and that's incorrect. We have chapters across the country.
Yes, we do.
We talk weekly. This is not, we have already been to the Supreme Court.
Yes,
to fight Comcast. To fight Comcast.
And protect the Civil Rights Act of 1866.
To the HR 40 hearing.
Yes.
With our judiciary, with HR 40, to have it marked up, with Dr. Darity, who wasn't able to be present because he was at the Angela Project. We have already had his recommendations entered into the record at the judiciary hearing. We as ADOS and the chapters that were formed gave Karen Bass our recommendations. Put some money in the bill. You want us to take you seriously, money talks. Put money into that bill. And then we can have a real conversation. It's not just about historians. We are talking about multi-generational repair. So you're going to need some people who are used to indigenous contracts because the United States doesn't meet their agreements. So we need someone who's an expert in that. We need some fund managers so that if money is intended to last through some generations, we have people that can manage that.
Make those demands and hold them accountable. I got to get to another audience question.
Hi. I love all the fire and the passion that you guys are saying. My thing is that we definitely don't want Trump to win in the next election. You do have on fire people like Congresswoman Maxine Waters, who's the chair of the Financial Committee. You have Karen Bass. You have, before Elijah Cummings passed, people that are on fire in the Congressional Black Caucus that are doing work. My concern is that we don't get divergent and then Trump gets another 4 years. So I recall what someone said on Yahoo News, that if the Democrats don't unite under one message, Trump can win for another 4 years. So I don't want to see, while I'm 1,000% behind what you're saying, I don't want to see Trump win another 4 years. And I'm thinking, have you spoke to like Congresswoman Maxine Waters or some people that are already
Can I ask the
because we don't want to listen to me. Just hear this out, because I'm passionate just like you. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to, because the wheel is already moving. Okay, we got Congresswoman, she's the chair of the Financial Services Committee, so she has the power to subpoena Donald Trump's bank records. Elijah Cummings, before he died, he's over the White House.
You gotta keep moving, though.
Yeah.
Can I
so
ask
my
him a
thing
question?
is that we need to work also with the fire that you're saying, but with the people that are already there. Because my thing is, we don't want Trump to win another 4 years, and we can't divide our message.
Can I ask you a question? Just on the face of it, if I asked you the question, who was a better president, Barack Obama or George W. Bush, what would be your answer?
Barack Obama.
Okay, so now if I told you that,
1,000%.
now if I told you that under Barack Obama, out of the $23 billion in SBA loans, Black Americans only got 1.7%.
Okay, wait a minute. Let me respond to that.
Under George W. Bush, Black Americans
Secretary
received
Henry Paulson.
One at a time.
Okay, Secretary Henry Paulson got on his hands and knees when President Obama got in office because the banks were folding. Okay, so President Obama, if you have a bank account right now, President Obama loaned the banks money so that they could get back on their feet.
Loan the auto workers. One of the things that we wanted from President Barack Obama was to audit the banks, one thing that he never did. So again, back to my point, under George W. Bush, we received over 8% of SBA loans to small black businesses.
But he also
and he cut that, Obama cut that to 1.7% of $23 billion.
Changed the way that Visa cards was being distributed. Remember, you could go to a college campus.
I just fundamentally, I think that as a Black Americans, we need to get out of this mode. We need to get out of this mode of identity politics, and we must look at outcomes. We must look at tangible outcomes.
Thank you, Chad.
I totally
agree with you, Chad.
Was Obama better for the country than Bush or Trump? Overall, the country overall.
We haven't had a president that's been good for Black America.
That's what I'm saying. There has not been a president. So it's like overall, I'm not just talking about from a financial standpoint, but we're talking about living in this country, fear of the police and changes. Like with Trump right now is.
Let me help you.
Come on, help me, Angela.
All of what is happening under Trump was happening under Obama. It's just being televised. The revolution is being Twitterized. Obama did a lot of respectability identity politics and had folks coming down to Morehouse College talking to brothers sideways.
Very sideways.
It was just a bunch of nonsense when it came to us being murdered. The police got Blue Lives Matter.
That's right.
How does any of that work when we're the ones being murdered with impunity? These officers are walking, they're not being charged. All I'm trying to say is this. Things were not, just check your circumstances.
So it's better under Trump.
It's better under Trump. Couldn't even take care of the old kids in Chicago.
I have one more important point. Out here, you're talking about the Democrats building up the immigrants. Why do you think that is? Because we're waking up. We're becoming politically educated. They can't count on our votes. Let me tell you something. As they grow the immigrant base for those votes, when do you think we're going to be in a position ever again to make these demands and make them come to their knees? When? And furthermore, if reparations isn't the thing to close the egregious racial wealth gap, I just told you, white folks, 100 trillion household dollars, 90% of us share 700 billion, and many of us can't get jobs, we're working gig jobs. I don't care about the unemployment number. What matters is folks got to work 3 Uber jobs or some kind of DoorDash just to make ends meet. I'm telling you that we're amongst the working homeless.
Right.
And pretty
Right.
soon they won't need our vote.
You're right.
Right now we're in the best position, and all we got is our vote.
Y'all got to understand, I'm playing devil's advocate.
Let me
I agree
give you
with 90% of everything that you guys are talking about.
me
I
give you
hear you.
perspective.
I got to give the other side.
Let me give you perspective, though.
I
You're
got
asking
a couple minutes.
okay. You're asking about presidents. I don't. No disrespect to Angela Rye. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care if you're that six-figure brother. I don't care if this is Baldwin Hills, Baldwin Vista. I don't care if your boomer parents, grandparents got a bomb house up there. I don't care about any of that. Because out of the 2.6 percentage of the wealth that we control in this country, which is nothing, of the 1% of rural land that we control in this country, which is nothing, 50% of our black people have negative wealth.
That's right.
And so to the extent that you have numbers like that, that means that we are in decline.
Oh, yeah.
And
It will
people need
collapse.
to wake up.
By
if we don't wake up
2053,
now,
the numbers are
that's
crazy.
right.
Yeah, I understand. So I understand all the numbers. Here's the thing, because we got to go.
Oh, man.
I know. I mean, it's an hour.
We need 2 hours.
We've been talking about reparations for years. Every group has been just as passionate as you are.
Really?
Yeah.
Probably not as passionate as you, Angela. Probably not as passionate as you. When's it going to happen?
Yes.
When's it going to happen? Do
Well,
you
we-
foresee
let-
this
let me-
happening
let me-
with this country as divided as it is right now?
Let me tell you,
Yes.
it happens
Yes.
when we
Oh,
move
yes.
as a block. When every last one of the ADOS people pick up a brick and stop being afraid of the racist called Trump. As if we haven't endured racists from the time we
do
were
you
brought to these
realize-
shores.
do you realize-
We need to move as a block.
Even if you got a president.
That's when it comes.
But you know
Not
what,
until we
Angela?
believe in it.
Hold up, Angela. You said we got to move as a block, right?
Yes, we
So
do.
we got to say with the Caribbeans and everybody.
Everybody's got to come together. So why are we divided?
You can't be divided.
So that's a good point. That's a good point.
We need our immigrants. We need all our immigrant allies.
That's right.
We need white allies to teach each other the history.
That's
too.
why everybody's got to come together,
That's
though.
right.
So I understand the
saying
reparation point, but you got to work together with
But
everybody else.
coming together doesn't make everyone the same.
I get that. I'm talking about not the reparations
we
part
can't-
of it, but everything else
So-
that happens in this
so
country. When you're
the-
talking about oppression in this country,
The
we have to work together.
fundamental importance of ADOS is we are recentering the national identity of what it means to be African American, quote unquote, in this country around lineage as it properly should be centered, not melanin content.
I got you.
Okay, there is no melanin test to be. How much melanin does it take to be black currently? Right? How much do you need?
I know some people that pass for white all the time, and they got lineage from Africa, from descendants of slaves.
What we are saying is that lineage supersedes all of that. And we trace our lineage back to the American institution of chattel slavery. Donnie might trace his lineage back to the Caribbean institutions of slavery, right? And that comes with a specific justice claim against a specific government. But here in America, to the folks on this stage that have ancestry that goes back to the antebellum times and the southern plantations, we have a specific claim against a specific government. And specificity in a justice claim is essential.
And
Black
agenda is all of us. Black agenda is everybody.
Yes.
Right.
Black agenda is where we fix it. ADOS101.com.
Yes.
The Black agenda is there for you. And when we advocate, when we go into spaces, when ADOS LA meets with a Karen Bass, or we meet with the mayor, or whoever it is that we are advocating for, we advocating for black folks. Period. Hands
We
down.
also we're an educational group, right?
Yes,
so
we are.
we have book clubs where we're reading different texts. We're currently reading They Were Her Property, White Women as Slave Owners in the American South. So we are about talking about the real history.
Okay.
And talking about the data that informs ADOS life here in this country, because we have what Tone calls a decadent veil. You know, we have a small percentage of celebrity that's
10%.
thrown in front of us to make us feel like we all get in the bag.
Right.
But
we
that is
understand.
not the case.
It's not
We
the
are
case for
living
everybody.
largely in abject poverty.
Okay, real quick. 15 seconds, because I got to go. I want to get your information out there. How can people get in contact with you guys if they want to know?
Well, number one, ADOS101.com. There you can see our talking points, the Black Agenda. You can connect to Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore's social media. Also for For me, I'm Chad_Boogie on Twitter. Don't follow me if you don't love black people, because I do. And you probably will get offended.
Okay. Appreciate that. I want to thank our guest, Friday Jones, Angela Nirvana. I'm sorry, I got to go. Angela Nirvana and Chad Brown for breaking down the economic black agenda. we leave on time. I'm sorry.
Bring us back. Bring us back.
Come back.
Exactly.
I wasn't finished. I wasn't done.
Exactly.
If y'all ain't excited about that enough for everything y'all heard today. Thanks to everyone watching us at home. And don't forget, you can catch us anywhere. Just download the Fox Soul TV app from the App Store, Google Play, Fire TV, or Apple TV. If you're in the LA area, you want to be in our audience, you can email audience@foxsoul.tv, and make sure you keep on tuning in to
the Mike and Donnie Show
on Fox Soul. Y'all fired up! All right. Stay tuned for Female Rap Showcase on the Tammy McLean Show. It's coming up next.
Thank y'all.